Hello. Hey, everybody. It is Justin Lyons, father to Miles, Marley, Mickey, and McKinley. I won't tell you which one, but one of them has red hair. So, before we get started, I'll start over. How about that? Hey, everybody. It is Justin Lyons, father to Mickey. Hey everybody, it is Justin Lyons, father to Miles, Marley, Mickey, and McKinley. One of them has red hair, and I'm not telling you who. So, before we get started with this podcast, I just want to take a quick 30 seconds and give it back to you and give you an opportunity to give yourself a little bit of self-love. So, I'm going to break this out into 3 segments. 10 seconds on how you feel, 10 seconds on a positive memory, and 10 seconds on a positive vision of your future. So let's get started. There's theme music for each 10 seconds. So enjoy the ride, dive in, take it serious. All right, let's do it. And we will do the 10 seconds of how you feel in 3, 2, 1, go. Nice job. Now we're going to do 10 seconds of your positive memory in the last 24 hours. You've got 10 seconds in 3, 2, 1, go. Cool. Hope you did it. If you don't have one, then think a little bit harder. So, final one, 10 seconds of a positive vision of your future. Positive vision of your future. In 3, 2, 1, go. Sweet. Hopefully you enjoyed that and at least could think of 1 out of the 3. And hey, let's get started. And let's kick off our exciting pre-podcast music and go. Hey everyone, this is your old friend, Justin, that guy that's been on that journey for seemingly decades to make the world a better place and start a company that help kids discover their best selves and grow it and maintain it and avoid the pitfalls that many of us have experienced in our young lives and even our adult lives. I know that was a balance between my son and my relationship with him, and wanting to make sure that the foundation was being laid for him to be protected and successful and happy and fulfilled and all those things. But, you carry the pain of your own mistakes, your own hell. And, you hope you can survive the hell in your life so that you can climb out and serve others, ensure that they don't, or do your best to make sure that they don't experience the same thing. Now, different people's hell, so to speak, is different. But if it feels like hell, it is hell. And I think we've all had moments in our lives where it's felt like that. So, I've always found it meaningful to try to, transform that experience into something that not only makes sure that I never experience it, but share my story or anything I've learned, call it wisdom, with others, so that they don't have to experience it. And my kids really never have known what they're experiencing some things in recent history that they're seeing me go through. But generally speaking, I've never really shared the details of my past, because the last thing I wanted to do was start to tell tales that, you know, maybe they felt it was sort of indirectly a green light, or they want to be like daddy, so let me go get screwed up like daddy. No, we don't want that to happen. So I tell them, I'll tell you the stories when you're 30. Although I noticed that as Miles gets older, some of the stories start to slip out. So I have to catch myself. And Marley's always hanging around, soaking it up. So got to be careful. So why would I want to record a podcast after so long? Well, I think I've got something to say. And that is reason enough for me. And there's a lot that I've been managing, reflecting on, processing, but I want to make sure it is thoughtful enough that anyone that would be listening to this, especially as a parent, or I think anyone that thinks about their childhood, might find thought provoking. So I'm reading this book by a guy named Jordan Peterson, who he's a bit of a lightning rod, I guess. I don't really follow that stuff, but in our politically charged climate, he has said some things more, I think, from like a critical thinking mindset rather than just like the typical, like, I'm going to pick a side emotionally and not look at all the facts. But that said, he's made some people, he's annoyed some people, let's just put it that way. But what I couldn't deny is, I think when I first heard him talk, and I don't know if it was like YouTube or whatever, that he got me to think about particular topics with a certain depth, a critical mind, and not in a way to validate an opinion or a belief, but truly just like breaking it down into its core components and looking at the facts. And really just, I think the thing that, for the stuff that I looked at, that he always landed on was, like, issues are not as one-dimensional or even two-dimensional as people want to make them out to be. There's a lot there, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable in a charged sort of subject matter to take the time and consider all the facts, and then come to some conclusion if you can. Sometimes you can't. So anyway, I was interested in him, and then he wrote this book. I think it's called like the 12 Rules of Life that he wrote. And so I started reading it and listening to it, and it's actually really thought-provoking. And there's a quote that I wrote down, and it got me writing, and I wanted to share it. So he was talking about a kid who kind of took a wrong turn as like a preteen teen. And it was one of these things where, folks couldn't understand because his parents seemed nice, and he had older siblings that seemed like they were doing well. So what's wrong with this kid? So he says in the book, regarding this boy's father, who was an older guy, guess somewhat quiet, but always like bought this boy what he needed. Even if he crashed a car, even if he said he wanted something and never used it, he just kept, giving these things to this boy. So what Jordan says in the book, he says regarding the dad, and in relation to the boy, kind of going on the wrong path, he said Maybe he, meaning the father, couldn't pay enough attention to his son. Maybe that's all it took to fracture their relationship. I'll read it again. Maybe he couldn't pay enough attention to his son. Maybe that's all it took to fracture their relationship. So, fracturing a relationship between a father and a son, that is actually at the root of why I started and went after a concept in a business and a technology called Blaze, because I felt there was a fracture in my relationship with my son Miles, and I felt it was incumbent upon me to fix it clearly. I was the one that was the problem. And when they're really little, you can keep kicking the can down the road with your kids. Like, I'll play with them more next week, or I'm just really busy or stressed out, or I'll get around to being like more present with them. I'll get around to reading with them, sitting and playing with them. But, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and you wake up with a kid who doesn't like to read, is acting out. And then you got to ask yourself, is this relationship fractured? And what does it mean not to have a fractured relationship? So it made me ask a question to myself, which was, one of the parts of this book that they were talking about is, well, what's up with this kid? Why, his siblings turned out fine and his parents seemed fine. So like, what gives, And so the question I posed was, how does one child born into many turn out bad? How does one child born into many turn out bad? And here are some of my thoughts on that. All kids aren't born equal. That's my opinion. I think everything has changed since the prior one, meaning the prior sibling, or even all the prior siblings. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Let's start with the mother. She's at a different time in her life. Perhaps she's a much different person, for better or worse. Same with the father. Stress could be up, it could be down. Substance abuse could be peaking, it could be receding. What mom eats, what mom drinks, how mom feels. All of these things likely change child to child. The nurses, the doctors, the procedures, the equipment, the medication, all of this likely changes. Mistakes may have been averted with previous children. And with this child, they could abound. If you take even a moment to begin to consider all the points in even an infant's young life at which a mistake could happen, you very well could become paralyzed with anxiety and never want to have a kid, ever. Children at every second of every stage in their developmental journey are bereft of choice. Instead, they must go with the flow, follow the lead, trust whichever adult has them in their care. In their infant months, through their toddler years, they're denied even language and voice other than the most primitive sort, like screaming and crying or throwing something. This may or may not help them in a traumatic situation, but what it doesn't afford is the ability for them to recall and retell that which they have experienced. So let's return to the question at hand. Are all children born equal? The answer is clearly no. But not only are they not born equal, they're also not raised equal. In fact, there is nothing equal at all about the human experience. But more specifically related to children, even when born to the same mother and father in the same town and the same house, children have uniquely different experiences. These experiences either set a mental, emotional, and physical foundation that protects and navigates them into their preteen years and beyond, or these experiences leave children vulnerable, confused, scared, and in a perpetual state of fight, flight, or fake it. So when someone sees a young boy or girl go south or lose their way or go bad in their middle school years, despite such a great family and great siblings, remember that there were 12 years of unique experiences, nearly 13 if you count the womb, that led this young person to the present moment. Thank you for listening.